is.
They'll never starve. They'll die of thirst first, but we won't let that happen.
Hi, Patience.
Hi.
New Mexico, truly horrible. Hello, Mr. Sparson. Hello, Mrs. Sparson. Hello.
Hello.
Who's that back there?
People on this
Oh,
side.
very good. Thank you. Thank you, Chris. Okay. I better get in there, but let me get that really good. I can't. My fingers don't do very good on these phones. I have no fingerprints. There we go. All right. All right. And those who get positions with the county steal horses.
Patience, I've never had the opportunity of meeting you and introducing myself.
Nice to
I'm
meet
Kelly
you.
Esparson.
Yes.
And I just want you to know that I'm not on the opposite end. You can count on me 100%. I'm true to my colors.
Okay, good.
I'm not flaky.
I know who isn't true to their
Let me
colors,
tell you.
who stole a horse and got a job with the PNZ.
Right.
Huh.
Right.
Shock, isn't it?
Not at all, actually. Howdy. Sure. Thank you. I'm going to get in there and record. Thank you, Chris.
Yes, and
I'll come back.
put that on because it doesn't fit.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
So what we found, obviously there's multiple solutions out there. So birth control, something we're doing. And we're participating in that. Adoption programs, ideally we bring that sanctuary. If somebody has a couple of hundred acres of land or more, maybe we can set up a sanctuary. But at this point, that is probably not ideal down the road. Something to look at. Interesting, some stats, and I'm sure you'll argue them, but approximately 20,193 horses were rounded up by DLM. Of those, 6,700 were adopted, and that's about 33%. So when we look at an adoption program, which I think is a really good option, one idea on the books, maybe they don't adopt them in bulk, but they one or two at a time. Those are some ideas out there. That is, of course, a good option. BLM estimates that it's roughly about $27,000 a year per horse for feeding, watering, and managing the horses. Again, that number, I don't know. We don't have that kind of money. I'll answer all your questions when I get to the questions in the end, okay? Thank you so much. So the goal is healthy horses on a healthy landscape. And combined with the climate situation we're in, it's probably a drier year than normal. I think we're going to see the issues of what happens to the land. We have to be concerned about not just the horses, but the people and what it does to the land. And as they graze, how they eat, that becomes, it's not like other grazing animals. So there's something that we have to think about, including our environment and the community itself. And then, obviously, where it comes down to, it's going to be a multi-tiered solution that comes out of this. And we have a role in government. It's not to manage, feed, water horses. That's just not it. We don't have a budget for it. We can't move horses around. That's something we just can't do. And so we do need help in the private sector. We're going to need help if you all want to help us solve the problem. So the one thing we did was address the issue of feeding on a road for safety issues. So that's the premise. That's why probably you're here. Hopefully we can work on some solutions to come out of that. So that's a little bit of my opening remarks. We're going to talk about a little bit of the process now. And I'd like to start with a small, short presentation. We'll have three short presentations today. One is planning and zoning, the process of that we're going through with our planning and zoning department. And then community services, Jamie's here, Espinosa, who is the director. Talk a little bit about that. And then we've got the sheriff's office here. Alan will be talking a little bit about the citation process. Our goal is not to arrest people and make victims out of people that are doing the right thing. We are trying to protect the public from issues related to a collision, related to a car or truck injuring a person if they hit a horse. Okay, so that's kind of the premise and why we're here. So with that, Makita, you got the floor, 5 minutes, and this is Makita Hill. He's going to talk a little bit about the process for planning and zoning department.
All right, can you hear me? Okay, my name is Makita Hill. I'm interim director of our planning and zoning department, and John asked me to.
He's full of shit. He ain't got the money. They spend millions every freaking meeting. Yeah, that's right.
The primary one being why planning and zoning. Why is planning and zoning involved in anything having to do with permitting or horses? We have a resolution and an ordinance, and it says we're going to accept these applications, and the applications are going to be reviewed by a consultant, and a fee comes with the application, and the fee goes to the consultant. So why is P&Z involved in any of this? It is because this is a lot of how we get our planning and zoning business done, and I'll give you a few examples. The most current one is our telecommunications program. And we have an ordinance that was passed in 2006 that calls for a consultant to review any and all telecommunications proposals, whether it is changing out equipment on an existing tower or building a brand new tower. And as you can imagine, there are a lot of FCC regulations and engineering and structural, and nobody in the county comes with that kind of expertise. And it's not just that we have someone on contract who receives fees and they review and make determinations. This consultant is outside of the county. And so that is why we describe a consultant as a neutral third party. They're not just reviewing our materials and checking to see if it complies with our rules and regulations, but as a third party person, they may be able to make an observation that we can't have in-house. Now, as you can see in Placitas, there's been a lot of land subdivision regulations, and a lot of that is land engineering and grading and drainage and road design. And some of that goes to consultants too, and they get paid for that. So we have been doing this process since the mid-1980s, and we are well versed in receiving applications, doing permitting, doing consultations, and so we didn't want to reinvent the wheel with how we do this. Planning and zoning, we have a method of doing things, and it's not a stretch for us to take into account horse feeding. That doesn't make us experts. It is simply the place in the county where we administer this program. And this is a little bit of a background of why this department and why we're handling this procedure. Did you have a question?
Yes, you're saying that you're here as a consultant. Where are the consultants for the highway that all of this is about? I'm talking about consultants that consult us with HAZCOM, hazardous material, hazardous waste, that they plan on utilizing this highway for transporting it through our roads, and that's why they're getting rid of the horses. Where's the consultants for the Humane Society? Is there anybody here? Does the county have anybody here from the Humane Society to show that this is an inhumane, terrible atrocity being done to these horses? Are any of those consultants here?
Are any of those consultants here?
The answer is no.
The answer is no. Yes.
I have this question, specific about what you said. You mentioned consultant, and Mr. Garcia has mentioned a consultant. What is the name of the consultant who is reviewing or will be reviewing the applications for a permit?
Okay, right now, we do not have one central person who is going to be doing all of these things. We're talking with a group of consultants, and as applications come in, they'll be distributed to whoever is available to review and give us feedback on applications.
So you're contemplating having more than one consultant to review the application?
Yes.
Okay.
On your applications, they say,
Sir?
These group of consultants, are they equine professionals? Are they in the world of equine professions?
Yes, that's what we're looking for,
Oh,
yes.
so you're gonna go
Looking
out
for.
and community, but how many professionals here within the community as well?
That I don't have an answer to. Sir?
On this application, it says that they're going to be reviewed by the counties and applied experts. But who are those consultants? Who are the counties that?
Those are the consultants.
Yeah, no, who are they?
We have a group that we're working on these applications. It isn't going to work to have one person once these applications come in, so.
Let me address that question real quick. So we have a consultant that we've hired. We're looking at others. Right now, they've been harassed by people. And so it's a very big concern I have that whoever we hire, they're gonna shoo away. So we're just trying to make this process work.
I'll volunteer as a
So-
consultant.
You did not have the floor, ma'am.
I'm
Please
sorry.
don't speak out again. If you do, I'll ask you to leave. Thank
Okay.
you. Okay, so right now, we're just gonna be a little careful about who the consultants are.
But they're in the county.
There'll be consultants hired by the counties that are experts in veterinary care and equine. Yes. Are you done with the presentation?
Yes, unless anyone has any more questions about how we process the applications themselves.
I do have a question, an additional question about the consultant. The name or names of the consultants should be public record. It does not do any justice to this community or to making us trust the process if the identity of the consultants or the proposed consultants is kept secret. And so I would urge you not to hold that close to the vest.
Okay, thank you. And in the back?
Yes, I was wondering who's paying for all these services? For consultants, for all this permitting process, for installing all this extra, there's laws, there's judicial system, who pays for all of that?
Well, some of it will be going out of the fees that come with the applications, and the county government itself will cover any other additional expenses to make this work.
So is that funded by taxpayer dollars?
It's all public taxpayer dollars.
Thank you, that's what I
Yes.
thought.
So going around with that then, we're going back to Mr. Garcia's question saying that the government has no money to help us pay for feeding the horses. So that comes right back to you saying that you have money to hire consultants and you have money to put these, like the planning and zoning, but yet you have no money to give us as citizens who are willing to help. Or the sanctuary, see, also I must point this out. You're saying the rescues have not come forward. We're not rescues, we're all sanctuaries, okay? So under the 501s that we are, we're sanctuaries. That means we do not
So
rescue.
if you're making a question or a
So I'm
statement, so
making
get
a-
to your point, please.
Yeah, I will get to my point.
Please.
So my question is, you have money for the planning and zoning, but yet you have no money to give to the sanctuaries that are willing to help feed the horses. And you have money to consider, to look at consulting, which takes money and time. So where's the money coming from, and why don't you have money for us?
Thank you. So what we're gonna do now is, we're gonna talk
Can you
to,
answer that question?
thank you. Please don't disrupt. I asked the questions about planning and zoning. She made a statement, something else.
She asked the question.
There's no answer. Sorry. Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you. So next, we're going to go and talk to Jamie Espinosa, who's Director of Community Services. And she will talk a little bit about the process from their perspective. Jamie?
Well, that's rude.
Please don't disrupt the meeting. Thank you.
I've got my hands up, and you
Thank
walk
you.
away.
It's already rude.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm Jamie Espinosa, for those that don't know me. Okay, if you can just kindly just let me talk and then you can ask questions in just a bit. I'm the Community Services Director. In this portion, this part of the process for wild horses, my only role in this is out of my department in Animal Services, I fund Mount Taylor Mustangs, who is not our consultant and not part of this ordinance at all. I want to make that very clear. She is part of Mount Taylor Mustangs, who only is administering the PZP at this time. There is no other talks of her involved in this ordinance or anything further than that. Also, I just want to talk a little bit about obtaining a consultant or anybody, any equine professional. We do require, you know, some veterinarian experience. That would be highly, that's at the top of our list, is a veterinarian with equine experience solely, or, you know, at this point, we're just looking at all options. We do have a few people who are interested, but we do not have any finalization with names or organizations that we have contracted with at this time. Right now, there is not a consultant, so there is no name to give you, and there's no amount to fund right now. So that is not an option right now to discuss. I'll let Patience talk. I know she had her hand up before.
Yes, a couple of things is part of the legislative record when you voted on, when the county commission voted on this ordinance, this resolution, it was stated that Karen Herman was a consultant. She is an expert in roundup, and she's had about 400, Mount Taylor Mustangs is a for-profit, and they have about $450,000 worth of federal pay for rounding up about 450 horses for the federal government. So they're an expert in roundups. But I want to say this, is that the reason why we have Article 20, Section 21 in New Mexico's Constitution is so that our natural resources are managed at the legislative level, not county by county by county by county, so that we cut up our state piecemeal. We're going to frack and send waters your way. Screw you, we're making money. So that Article 20, Section 21 has been under attack for the last 3 years. Oh, how interesting. Then we have our wild horse law that regulates the horses. Hence, Karen Herman is darting the horses. We appreciate that. Besides the stealing of horses that we have had by one who's been hired by the county, you know, so darting, stealing, our horses are not at 167. But 167 is a fine number for this area. Now, a county,
about community services? I'm just
yes,
curious. Please make your point.
a county only has the jurisdiction that is specifically granted to it by the legislature. This county, any other county in New Mexico, does not have the jurisdiction to regulate horses, and that's why they don't know what they're doing and why they need to hire.
Thank you. Go ahead. No. Go ahead, Jamie. You have the floor.
Go ahead.
Well, thank you. And I'd like to kind of ask this of John, too. Thank you for being here today. I attend every county meeting for the last 18 months, twice a month. And I'm John Beltry. If you don't know who I am, I think most of you do. And John, you know, we talk about budget and we spend hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars every meeting. This county is rich. Don't tell me we don't have the money to move these horses, put some improvements in maybe, work together to find a way. It's a small amount of money compared to what we spend every single county meeting. Go look at the records.
Do you have a question about community service?
I'm making a comment to you and I'm letting you know we have funds to help get this done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions about community services that I can answer?
Yeah, I was just wondering if you go out for these other consultants, are you going to do it on bid, or will you try to make positions and do it as employees?
So I will speak a little bit on, I don't know, I'll say I don't know for 100% if we're going to do an RFP for this service. I will say my experience with veterinarian service in general, I have gone out for RFP twice and gotten 0 response, just for veterinarian services for our animal shelter or any other livestock that comes into our possession that's unclaimed or things like that. So veterinarian services in New Mexico is a huge, huge problem. So I'm not 100% sure exactly what the process is. Sorry, I didn't really answer that in a nutshell. Sorry.
Okay, so you're the community events, community services, okay. So my question to you would be that, why don't you reach out to the sanctuaries that are already in place and see the years of experience, and then the veterinarians are not coming forward because they don't want to have anything to do with the Placitas Wild Horses. So, like for myself, I have 50 years of equine professional. Like, there are many people in this room that work with vets, work with farriers, work with horses every day. So, you don't have to have it on, say, you have a degree. But why just have the vets when you have a room full of people who are so knowledgeable? If you just have an event and talk to us, then we can educate you to say this is what really needs to be done. Because no one has really done that. And as this gentleman just said, there is money out there. And you can look at it and funnel it into the sectors that are already established, and then we as a group can help. Because the reason why none of the rescue sanctuaries have gone with these permits is we don't have the money. Okay, no one's willing to help us. We're struggling to feed our own horses that we took in after the real So I say to you, you have the position to reach out to the community as well.
Right, yeah, that's a great idea, and I thank you for that. That is an option, definitely. I think we should start addressing. We haven't started a forum, which I don't know that I will be in charge of. It'll be the
You bring up a great idea, and actually we've been doing that. We've been meeting with some of you already, so welcome that.
Yeah, I would email John Garcia if you have ideas about different equine professionals. And I just want to make clear, I did not say for sure it would be a vet, I just said it is nice when we have different issues to have a veterinarian in place for injured horses or to assist. And Mount Taylor Mustang does a great job. She's vetted, she's helped vet lots of ailing horses, but if that is preferred, but not definitely required.
I just have one question. Yeah. And as a professional, right, a veterinarian professional, you're Mountain Mustangs, right? That's what
I'm sorry, say that
a
again?
veterinarian professional? Okay. Okay, let me try to put this as simple as I possibly can. Do you honestly believe that you're going to find a veterinarian or any professional animal doctor that is going to be okay with keeping water from that animal as an ordinance? Ethically, I just want you to answer that question to the
Yeah, I'm not involved in that.
What else?
Actually, I think you were first. Go ahead.
So as the community services director, we've come to you with all of these ideas over the past several months, and you guys have not done a thing that we've asked. We've asked you guys to work with the 501. We're here. We haven't heard from you. We've asked and asked and asked and asked at these meetings repetitively. Where are you guys? What do you do? Why aren't you contacting us? We're here again. She just brought it up again. And it's
My office
crickets
is
for you
open, you're
guys.
welcome to come. Others in this room have done that. I'm more than happy to meet with you, talk about your ideas.
I have not gotten an email, so.
I did, what's your phone number? I did send an email with an invite.
I'll give you my phone number and contact information at the end. So other questions on community service? You've already had the floor, man behind you, you're up.
Why are we jumping ahead to this equine experts? You know, this community has taken care of these horses. When we meet here, it's always something against the horses, not for the horses. The land has been taken away, there's no funds, there's no land. But Placitas and builders going back to planning and zoning, they don't have planners. There's no green belts, there's no parks, our open space is an oxymoron. It doesn't exist. And yet this community has kept these horses healthy. We are collectively the equine experts. If that horse needs to have something done, cared for, we'll reach out to everybody that can and will help that horse. We don't need to be told, no water, no food, no yoke. We can't do that. We're calm. And that's it.
Other questions? I think that's a comment.
Okay, I'm gonna hand this over.
Okay.
My turn's done.
Thank you, Jane. So next we have, I'm going to have Alan Mill's going to come up talk about the citation process from the sheriff's perspective. So, Alan?
Okay, where's the sheriff?
I'm going to have a seat.
Where's the sheriff?
Pre-written information. So just to be clear, there are no questions. I'm not taking any questions from the crowd. If you want.
Hold it up closer.
So just to be clear, I'm not taking any questions, so don't bother raising your hand. I will provide my email. You're welcome to email me or the sheriff, and we will answer your emails. But it's pretty clear on how the sheriff's office plans to handle this. So basically, if the violation is observed or reported, we will, early on, we plan on making contact with that resident, sending that resident a 3-day letter with a copy of the ordinance, asking that resident to stop eating. Okay? After that, we will attempt again to make contact with that resident and basically collect the evidence to prosecute that case if that resident continues to feed after they've been told not to. So just to kind of give you an idea how this type of offense works, it's kind of like a traffic ticket. If a deputy stops you on a traffic citation or stops you for speeding, the deputy has the option to give you a ticket, they have an option of giving you a verbal warning, or they have the option of just releasing you and not doing anything except telling you to slow down.
Very subjective.
So that's basically the same type of thing with this is. The only thing is, the caveat is that in most cases, and I say most, there might be one that doesn't fit this criteria, we do plan on providing a copy of the ordinance to the resident and send that certified mail to prove that that resident did get that information. So that's basically the way that we are planning on handling this. Just to be clear, at this time, we are not going to enforce water, period, unless the water is causing a situation where it's right up against the roadway and it's causing the horses to get into a roadway. So if you have water on the side of the road, then yes, we may enforce the ordinance. Obviously, we're going to ask you to dump it out and not do that first. But because of the heat, the drought, and everything, that will be a case-by-case basis, and that will be a little bit up to the deputy or supervisor's discretion on how they handle that. The same as a traffic ticket. The sheriff's office has that kind of discretion. So basically, that's the way we'll handle it. Like I said, I will give her, I think most of you have my email. If you don't, I'll put it on paper in the back. Feel free to email me, and I will try to answer your questions. I'm not going to answer legal questions and things like that. There's just no use in it. So that's basically how the sheriff's office plans to handle this.
Very good. Thank you. Okay.
I have a question. Thank you for clarifying about the water, because I have a neighbor who's for the ordinance, and he has a fountain and a pond, and I've seen the horses over there, like drinking out of it. So I was curious, and we're off the road. Our road's not right by the road, so the horses are going to go where they're going to go. So I'm just curious if that becomes a problem. Are they going to tell people you have to shut down the fountain? This is my neighbor who's for the ordinance.
No, I think it's going to be an education process first. Happy to see that the sheriff is going to be compassionate about it too. I mean, really just trying to get through this. Yes, sir.
Here it says it's definition in terms of feed, food, hay, salt, and other nutrients. Is that food, water?
Yes,
And where
water.
does that have water?
That's true. Water is included as a nutrient. Yeah. Yes, ma'am. I haven't heard from you yet.
Hi, my name is Dr. Elizabeth Henland, psychologist, and I live in Rancho de Placitas.
Welcome.
Thank you so much. You know, I'm very seldom use the D word, I don't use the doctor word, but I'll use it if I need it. And I just want to say that I have read the Placitas area plan, and I just wonder if you guys have read it, that along with safety, there's a goal of mental health, and under that is mental health. And I just wonder, is it possible to have a consultant to say, what are the health repercussions? How is this ordinance impacting the health and the mental health of residents? Because I respect you totally for what you're saying. Thank you. I do respect you, sir, and I appreciate you putting your expertise here. But I am concerned about the mental health, the health of Placitas residents. We have many elderly people, and is anybody seeing what the impact to them is going to be?
You know, I think that's a really good point to make. I think they'll write it down and talk about it. I don't think we'll be spending public money to do that, but I think it's a good, valid. That's great. That's my point. It's a good, I think it's something to think about. Obviously, there's a lot of passion in the room and a lot of caring, so yeah, that's not a bad idea.
I just think that it needs to give equal, or at least almost equal weight, help to the whole thing with safety.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
My question was just about what you just said. He said at this time he was not going to, we can water. But will you notify us?
Yes.
Like, what, I mean, because it could go on, at this time, and it could be like November and whatever, and then, I just want to make sure that we're all notified.
Yes, we will.
Okay.
Promise you that.
All right.
Yes, in the very back. Yes, ma'am.
Can you define violation?
Can you define violation?
Do we have a definition for violation?
I
What
can't.
is a violation?
I can't.
You can't define violation?
Alan, do you think you can answer?
I'm not going to answer that question, but thank you.
How are we know? So we don't know what violation is.
How do we know?
Yes, ma'am.
So where's the money coming from to prosecute the elderly that will be feeding the horses? And we don't have money for the mental health, but we have money to prosecute the elderly that will be feeding the horses. Where's that money from?
It's baked in our budget, so it's already there. Yes, ma'am.
Actually, let's not blow up whatever. But what we talked about, when the sheriff was talking about his part in this, if we don't know what the violation is, it's if you don't even have a sign, there's no sign there. At least if you get pulled over by the sheriff's department at a stop sign, well, you didn't stop at the stop sign. But we have nothing on our roads or anywhere to tell us exactly what violation is. Because at this point, the horse has not even been categorized, whether it's wildlife, which we have been told by the Forest Service, it's wildlife. And the Forest Service actually depends on people to water for wildlife. So that is, you have us totally confused there. But people of Sandoval County are being denied their rights at this time. As this good lady was talking about, we're entitled to peaceful enjoyment of our homes. And that includes, if the wildlife is there, we have every right to ensure their safety, or if they need water, the very dependent things. And I actually got that from your own sheriff. We have the right to equal enjoyment of our homes. So I just feel at this time that the sheriff's department would be violating upon me.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
So I did an echo request asking for the scientific basis for all of the whereas statements in the ordinance.
Okay.
And I asked for I did a separate IPRA for each whereas clause, and I only got a response to one, and the person who responded said that they had no information in that regard. So I wonder, all of the whereas clauses don't seem to have any solid scientific, factual information behind them. They seem to simply have been pulled out of the air. I also wanted to mention that, a couple of things. I would like to understand why you would make up things that you have no scientific basis for and then establish those things as being a need for a law.
We passed the law, it's already done, so the question there.
Huh?
Hold on, excuse me. Thank you, he's asking a question. Thank you.
Possible 3 months and $300 fine. Where's it come from? How did it determine the 3 months?
It's a misdemeanor. That's what it just falls in that category. Yes, sir. Good question. Yes, ma'am.
I'm wondering if the county is now going to try to do something about natural attractants on the other side of 165. Water sources that are natural, orchards that are in that subdivision over there, and there is one definitely large orchard. Is the county going to go after those things next?
No. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I have an actual question about the process with the application.
Okay.
Are we gonna get to that later?
You can ask me now.
Okay. My 501c Farm Bureau Alliance in Mexico. I don't personally have horse experience. I'm primarily with other farm bureaus.
Okay.
Let's say I would need to have Ms. Patience or Mary Miles come in and be a volunteer for me.
Sure.
Or whatever. Having me volunteer such as Patience, then am I more subject to be a true for permit?
It depends on the consultant. If the consultant thinks you have the expertise within your 501c3 to do it, then it should be granted. But if you don't have the expertise, you won't get the approval.
So if I don't personally have the expertise, or if someone who's a
Well,
volunteer?
under your 501c3, you could bring that consultant in, you could bring advisors in if they're on your team. You just have to demonstrate that you can perform.
Okay.
And that's really all it is. We know 501c3s are challenging to get, and so all you have to do is start the process, and we'll look at the application,
Okay.
and we'll do parallel approval as you get the 501c3 worked out. We'll work with anybody to do that. We'd really like some of you to step up and do this, but listen, we're not going to feed them, we're not going to water them, and so really we want you all to help out with that.
My second question, if I may.
Yes, ma'am.
You made a statement about, you support the adoption program such as
Yes.
the BLM.
Yes.
Are you aware that Placitas Wild Horses have in the past and are potentially now being trafficked for slaughter to Mexico by Mr. Chavez, Los Lunas? He has been in this town. He has been here.
BLM doesn't support that. If it's happening, then it's a violation of their rules, so.
Investigation of that is part of my nonprofit.
Okay, so then you know.
I do know, so
Sure.
I'm asking you, based on my knowledge and the expertise of others, such as Ms. Patience, do you still support that in this community?
All we're supporting is an ordinance that bans feeding on roads so that cars don't hit horses. That's all we're doing. Yes, ma'am.
May I ask, I'm really confused about these 501c3s.
Okay.
Now, if the community, and that was a suggestion at another point, get together and have their own 501c3s, what's the liability? We're taking the liability of free roaming horses. I like my house. I like my truck. I don't want to lose it. I mean, the liability is just, how do you prevent that? Free roaming horses.
It's the same risk we have, and we're not willing to accept the risk. So,
You should be.
I can respect, oh my gosh.
Well, the
It's true. I respect anybody that steps forward with their 501c3 and accepts the liability. It's going to be a risky situation.
That's why the rescues have these horses contained. Why not, Placitas Wild, open up your gates, let those horses roam. You have the same liability. I mean, it doesn't make sense to me. Can you clarify that? No, let me Placitas Wild open up the gates and let the horses roam? Well, we can't because
Thank
the
you.
livestock board took
We're
that.
on,
I
we're
know,
done.
I
Thank
know.
you.
But why not? We have the same life, I mean, we will own all the free roaming horses. I will own everything they
You
do.
have the floor now, you don't have the floor.
I don't understand.
Let's
the
move on.
liability of
You
that.
don't have the floor.
Give her the
And
floor.
for us, it's like time to walk out.
Anybody want to walk out?
This is a good time to do it. If you all want to leave, this is a good time to do it. I'll give everybody a minute to leave. Whoever wants to leave.
Right on, ladies.
Thank you. Thank you. Please leave quietly.
I'm
not leaving quiet. But this is what the
You little weasel!
Last commission meeting, several people who commented during the public comment period, who suggested that the permit process not be limited to 501c3s, but be opened up to other interested individuals. And so what I'm wondering is if you or anyone else has recommended or is considering recommending a change to the resolution to permit permits to go to individuals.
I would say that's a possibility, for sure. That's definitely something that we could look at. Remember, I mean, we just don't want you feeding horses that hit cars. So if we can solve the problem,
Yes.
and we're not just trying to be so arrogant as you might suggest, that we're not listening to what your ideas. I think that's probably something we would consider for sure. Yes, sir.
Why is it a nonprofit? Why does it have to be a nonprofit?
Because of the risk and the liability. I don't know if a for-profit company would want to do it.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know, man, they're not doing it.
You know, if you want to come to me and talk about an idea,
I just
and by the way, let me start with this. You all asked earlier. So, here's the address. If you want my address, it's 1500 Idealia Road, Building D, P.O. Box 40, Bernalillo 87004. My email is jogarcia@Sandoval County NM.gov. And my phone number is 505-867-7626. I'll leave this at the back of the room if anybody wants to take a picture of it or get a copy of it. I'm more than happy to meet with any of you that want to come, except the lady that told me to F off and threw her finger. I got her number. She's not coming back.
Free speech.
Yes, ma'am. So, yes, you have a question.
Do we know how many citations have been issued since the horses hit 165 now?
Zero.
No, I mean as far as traffic.
I don't think we've had any citations issued. No?
Not that I know of.
I don't think so.
My second question was, if development is such a problem, which you know it is, development is skyrocketing here, why not put some development?
I'm sorry, the last part?
With development being a problem, not just for the horses, but for this instance for the horses, why not slow it up?
Yep.
The last part.
Slow it up.
Slow down your development.
Oh, yes, we can slow down development. Yeah.
Hurry up.
Yeah, we're gonna do that. No, we're not. Listen, it's gonna happen eventually. Every community, if you look at it, and you've studied it, every community does that. And then they introduce ordinances to slow down and stop the development in the communities. And it's inevitable, it's gonna happen. Will it happen this year? I don't think so. Because I think that's a big question for a lot of people.
Yeah.
There are thousands of residents here. There's only 60 of you in the room here. So this affects everybody in the community, not just those that have this passion for the horses. Yes, ma'am.
Could we move on with the agenda because I would like to hear about the statewide effort?
You raised her right.
So,
You raised her right.
What's going on statewide? So we've got a list of land partners that we're trying to work with. The ideal, I'll get to the point, the end first, and that is we'd like to pass a law, a state law, like came up last year, and use that same language, which was pretty good, and try to get that passed to start a statewide process. There are two big communities that have this problem, Ruidoso and Placitas. It's happening in a few other places as well. So we're trying to get the state involved, and we talk about money and resources, and that's what we need. We need support financially if we're going to start getting too far into this issue, for sure. So that's the goal. The goal is to get the land partners together, and I'll just touch a few of them. The land office, BLM, the livestock board. Livestock board is key to us.
Not a land
We have
office.
the Pueblo lands, and we have some of the other partners right in this central region. So those are
Forest Service.
we're looking at right now. So that's. I've been trying to get them all together, and everybody's, they hear about it, and then they don't return the calls. So it's going to be a challenge. It's called the demand pull. I'm trying to create an appetite for them to want to come to the table. But we've done this before. I mean, y'all know there's history here, 10 years. We actually had a sanctuary, I think it was Sandoval County, right? And that was opened and shut down as soon as, you know, it wasn't something we could count on. You know, so that's something we're going to try to do, is try to find a place where we ultimately could have a sanctuary. But where do you do that in New Mexico? So that's our goal, is to convene the land partners, get, I think it was Senate bill. Does anybody remember the bill number? Somebody did. 301? 301. We're going to try to bring that back, that language. So we're going to start the process, hopefully with an interim committee meeting in September, to try to bring that bill back. And that's our goal. So, I don't know who to call. Yes.
I've spoken on your earlier eyes when I started speaking.
No, it's great. No, I know. I appreciate it. You're bigger than me, so I.
Oh, thanks. Another bad word for you. I spoke at the last commissioners meeting, and I've spoken before, and it keeps kind of bubbling up to the top. I'm really curious, how did you decide that anybody who wants to do this has to have a 501c3? Now, I've got two theories. One is you don't know how 501c3s work, or it's an impediment to the plan. I'd like to think you don't know how 501c3s work in detail, but I can tell you a quick little bit if everybody wants to know. A 501c is a federally chartered corporation, and it's started so you don't have to pay taxes. It's tax-free. So somebody, as I pointed out the other day, who's been putting out 2 bales of hay in their backyard and filling the tank for 10 years, why in the world would they go to the trouble to do that? First off, it does cost you a little bit of money, but it's doable. I share my articles of
600
to anybody, but they have a board. What do they do? Name their dogs. You know, it's a small little thing, and that's the big impediment to this. There's really, I see no reason I said
I respect what you're saying. Having run many handful of 501c3s, it's a barrier to entry. Okay, that's the crowd out. And we don't think a for-profit company would want to do it because they would have a profit motive to do something with the horses. And that's our concern.
People don't want to make profit either. They're spending their hard-earned money to pay for it.
And as I said to the lady before, we don't get anybody stepping up, and we'll look at allowing those. It's an option.
I have a question.
That's exactly right. Their expenses can be.
What's the difference in liability between the individuals and
None.
so it doesn't matter?
No, not in court of law. No. Either way, there's a risk.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Again, I don't know how many times, 6, 10?
I think so. That's me.
Okay.
Hey, I just have a couple of questions, but are you, as the head of this forum, right, for the wild horses, are you familiar with the New Mexico Wildlife Corridor's action plan?
Yes.
Okay. Well, they did. I talked with James Hirsch. Right? He's your coordinator. He told me that that this extensive surveyor plan was done. And he told me that the horses were not included in this plan, correct?
Correct.
That's what he told me.
I wouldn't know. But
He also told me that this area was not included in the plan. So this was a very high dollar New Mexico Wildlife Corridors action plan that I'm talking about. So when I bring this up to everybody in this room, we need to understand that this isn't just about the horses. This is about development. And this is about them wanting to build a highway.
Right on.
And other development ideas that they have. So I believe that, you know, when the sheriff goes up there and says he's not going to answer our questions, or when somebody else is not going to answer our questions, there's an underlying reason for that. I mean, I'm just a taxpayer.
you're on to us.
But no, let me ask you one more question.
You bet.
Because the actual federal government, the wildlife biologists from the Sandia Ranger District, you know, when you call them and you tell them, you know, what's going on with our, first of all, I guess since you're the representative for this forum, do you consider the horses, this is a very important question to me, sir, do you consider the horses wildlife where are you categorizing the horses at this time?
The law, they say is free roaming horses.
The
and that's
law, what
we're
law,
doing.
sir? I'm sorry. What law? Because I really would like to know.
No.
I can't quote the law.
You can't quote the law.
77-18-5.
Okay, ma'am, what are the questions? I'm gonna give you an opportunity.
And the wild.
Talked a lot of questions.
Yeah.
If you interrupt again, you're gonna be asked to leave. You understand that? Okay, good. So, you've had about 10 questions. I'm gonna give you whatever questions you have, ask them now. Finish your questions. Go for it.
Okay. Actually, I actually stand here today, sir.
Pardon me?
I stand here in this room today,
Okay.
and I consider myself knowledgeable, okay, in a lot of different ways, because I have worked for the Forest Service.
Okay.
And
What's your question?
I have knowledge of developers, realtors, millionaires, billionaires. Some of those companies you were
That's
talking
impressive.
about.
What's your question?
You were able to mention names, okay?
Okay.
So, how many here are actually for development in this room? You're for development? Oh, yes. Oh, good, perfect. How many here are against development in this room? Okay. So,
What's your question, ma'am?
I'm against toxic air quality, depletion of our water,
Okay.
contamination of our soil, environment, natural resources, and there are actual Indian archaeological sites that are
Right.
really close to this, where you're thinking of putting this highway. So we're against toxic hazardous chemicals, hazardous waste, like I talked about sooner,
Right.
coming through our place here. Sandoval County is complicit with these types of things right now. That's the elephant in the room. Is why do you want to get rid of our horses? Why are you targeting our horses? And why can't you put them in a category of what we're dealing with is wildlife or what? And why can't you put up signs out there before you have this?
Can I answer
Sure,
that?
sure.
We're trying to work with the state transportation department to look at what we can do for the road. Slowing it down, put up signs, the whole county. It's a state highway. Finish your point.
Oh, I've asked for a meeting with you.
Pardon me?
I've called your office and I've asked, I'm from Madera.
Okay.
And you've never been to Madera. You've never held one of these, and
It's true.
it impacts our area
That's true.
also. Okay, so I just wanted to point that out.
Okay.
And I just wanted to say that when we call your office to try to ask questions, why we're being, why we're, the law's gonna come after us, because they said so. That's what they tell us. So, I would, if the sheriff would permit me, I'd like to ask him, what exactly am I being unlawful about? There's no signage. The Forest Service wildlife biologist actually tells us that they rely on people's water to put water out for the wildlife, for the
I
horses.
think I heard him say, well, they're not going to enforce the water.
Oh,
Okay,
well, you know what?
Thank you, ma'am. You've had time. They gave you your 10 minutes. You're famous.
I just wanted to let you know that I did speak with
Yes,
James
ma'am.
Hirsch.
Hi, so I'm curious about the consultant for the application review. And I'm a little confused about how long have the applications been available?
About 3 weeks.
And you're hoping that you get some applications, but you don't have anyone to review the applications. So I'm a little
I do have
curious.
somebody to review the application.
But I thought you said you.
I'm not going to let you know who they are because I don't feel like at this point.
You have them here, the application.
Could be one of you. Could be one of you. What's your point, ma'am?
Well, then someone said, well, when you're gonna put out a request for proposal for the consultants for the applications, implying that that had not been done and that you had no consultant, the person said, well, they didn't know that she had done RFPs before and she never got any responses. Well, I happen to know that RFPs are typically either sent directly to the people that they want to respond to the RFP, whether it be a business or a person or an entity of some sort, or they advertise in some sort of a general publication, like the Sandoval County Line, whatever the publication is for the area. But if people are not aware of the request for proposal,
then it's gonna be hard for people to submit an application to be a consultant. I also would like to mention that I did another different request and asked for Karen Herman's field notes or any documentation that she might have provided to the county regarding her darting procedure and her census procedure and all of that sort of thing. And not a single document could be produced. So I'm just wondering about her authenticity as a quote expert when she doesn't even maintain field notes to support what
We've
she
gotten
decides.
into a situation where our consultants are being harassed. Okay, so there are procurement options to secure a contract. Doing a sole source, as you know, because you're an expert, that we could do it that way, and that's the way we are doing it. So,
To do what? I'm sorry?
it's a sole source contract.
What does that mean?
That means that there are 3 or 4 ways you can do procurement, and one of those is you go after a specialist, somebody that can do the work, and you ask them to perform.
So you would actually maybe intentionally not choose one of the people here?
If it was in this circumstance, ma'am, to protect that person because they're getting harassed, yes, ma'am, I would do that.
No, I'm saying.
You're done, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, 2 questions, will be quick. So one, if none of the 501s decide to apply for the permit, are you guys thinking about opening it up to the public? Is that on? No.
If somebody can show and demonstrate they can perform and they're not a nonprofit, that could be an option, yeah.
Okay. The other thing was that when we have these commission meetings and we all spoke, we went to you and said and asked you to do an outreach program to help us, the sanctuaries, to look at a way to inform the community to help us with funding. That we asked that you would help us, that if we could find a way to say, look, if one of the 501s decided to step forward, we would need to have a way to get money from the community, because a lot of the community thinks that we just have so much money and that we all are trust fund babies and that we got all this money, right? Which we don't. So some people will give you 100 here, 50 there, whatever, but then they're resentful. So we asked you, we did personally ask you to help us. And we have gotten no response that
We don't have money to pay. We don't have money.
We're not asking money from you.
Okay.
Okay, we're not asking money from you. We were asking you to help us with an outreach community, like something in this forum, where instead of all this stuff, because you're just gonna get that much. You're hostile, and we're hostile towards you.
That's a good idea, actually. I think that's a good idea.
The hostility really needs to stop. And I'm gonna say this, yeah, you come in here being very hostile towards us, because I know you have a lot on your shoulders.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so then you give us hostility, and we're giving it right back to you.
Yeah.
Now, what we need to do as a community, and I say this to all of you, the only way, with the reaction that just happened momentarily, that is not how we get things done. We will not get it done. We need to work together, and I've said this for the last 24 years that I've been in this community. So I'm saying to you, I'm asking you, I'm pleading to you, please help us with an outreach community. And
I think it's a good idea.
because we are going to present, I know that the officers have a lot on their shoulders too, and they're not gonna want to be knocking on the elevator doors to say, because let's be frank, most of who are feeding are retired, okay? So we need your help to help us. And that's all we've been asking you from the very beginning.
I said it earlier, I think it's a good idea, so yeah, good idea. Now, by the way, just respect a little bit. You guys, there's hostility in the room, yes. You're talking over me, I'm trying to control a meeting. I totally respect everybody in this room and where you're coming from. I really do. I really do. And it's not like it's my first rodeo either, okay? And I respect, but I'm going to defend our county. I'm going to defend our budget and what we do and what we lawfully can do. And that is just to stop the feeding because of the safety issue. That is all we're doing right now. This effort, let me explain something. And if you speak out again, ma'am, I'm going to ask you to leave also, okay? Respect that, please. We don't have a responsibility to do anything here, okay? We're working with you at this point to try to solve the problem, okay? All we had to do is pass the law. We did that, okay? You can't feed horses. You can't water horses because it's a safety issue. Now we're here today taking bullets trying to resolve it, trying to explain to some of you why we're spending a little bit of money to try to get through this issue. I just hope that you try to just a little tiny, and I respect that you don't care about us in government. And, you know, I get that. This is a situation that requires a management solution, an issue. And I don't know what it is. It's going to be custom. It's going to be good, okay? But we have to communicate. I'm sitting up here taking hits, okay? And I'm not taking it personal from any of you, okay? I just ask that you respect what we're trying to do. If we can get past today, where we can start working on solutions, bring in community partners, find out how we can get these horses fed. Where can we find land big enough to put maybe a sanctuary, maybe something like that in New Mexico? The other thing we can do is just drop the microphone and say, don't feed the horses, good luck. We're not doing that. Why? Because horses are a part of this place. They're a part of the community. They're a part of our state.
And you're trying
They're
to
not
get rid of
indigenous,
them.
but they're indigenous now. They're here now, okay? We're not talking about slowing down development. I worked the last 8 years in the development community. Many of you know that. Some of you have done all the Google on me. You figured it all out. You figured out the highway. You're on to us. Dang, I can't believe you figured it out. That's not us. All we're trying to do is work with you now at this point. Yeah, it was rough. We spent 10 years to get here. We were doing nothing. We would fight another 10 more and do nothing. But if one person gets hurt or killed, how do you explain that to the family? When we knew or should have known that this was a problem. We know now, okay? A big part of this is working with the State Highway Transportation Office on that road, okay? That's a big one for me, for us. The other is the land partners. We need to get our land partners and get more people involved to own this problem. We don't have the resources to do it at all. All I ask is that you be patient with us. You can hate me. I'm a temporary guy. I'm going to be here for a couple of years, right? Then I'll be gone like all public employees do. Yeah. And some of you have so much disrespect for us that, you know, God help you too, okay? But it's not my first rodeo, and we're just trying to solve the problem. So, we can parse words, we can parse hairs, we passed the law, we're here now. Where do we go from here now? If you want to be part of the solution, fine. But if we're going to have meetings where there is hostility and everybody's just going to fight, we'll stop having the meetings. You can't feed or water the horses. That's the end. Okay? Good luck to you. Now, if you want us to do that, then I'll do that. Okay? But at this point, we have resources, we have help. I've been involved in state government for a long time. There are resources available. I plan to tap them on our behalf so that we can all be on the same side of the fence doing this. I don't know what else to tell you all, but if you step back and look at it from a different perspective, I think you maybe see that. So, you're done asking questions. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
No, you.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you for the floor.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Garcia.
Yes, ma'am.
Last meeting, I asked you where we could feed. Now, we still don't know, but one thing I can say is that when I'm trying to figure that out, hopefully you'll answer that question today. When we drive out Camino de las Huertas, right here, the road that we're on, yeah, we don't see any county signs, but we see about 10 signs that Woe and Placitas have put up on their private property. None of the neighborhoods contain any signage from the county highway department. Okay, so that would lead one to believe that the county doesn't believe there's a safety issue out in the county road area. And I live out on Llano del Norte. I don't have a public road in front of me. My 9 acres, 10 actually, 9 of it is contiguous with the BLM, and the road there is not a public road and is not maintained. So basically, I'm still saying, we constantly hear that 165 is a problem. We don't hear anything about, okay, 1,000 feet from 165 will be okay to water, 2,000 or 2.56 inches. We have no information about that. And when we look at where is it safe to water, to feed, we look at all of our county streets and there's not one sign from the county. But we're always pointing at the state, well, they can't, we don't have control over
No, I
them.
think you're making a good point, and we've talked about signage on county roads, so yes.
We did?
That is on the table for us to look
Okay,
at.
well, answer me. Where is it safe to feed? We all live on a road.
It's a good question, Sean, maybe where is it safe to feed? Maybe we can come up with that idea.
All live on a road, but, so you're saying not near a road. How far near a road? What road?
Okay, that's fair. I like it.
My question is actually kind of to her. But has there been a worst killed or auto accident, injuries, or pedestrian not on 165?
Good point. I don't know. Joe,
I can answer it.
Has there been?
And if so,
Nothing yet?
when?
Yeah, we can't guess, but we can look into that.
I can answer
It's
it.
like when
There has
was
been.
it?
Yeah, there was a horse killed last.
I can answer it.
What's that?
I know the data if you'd like it.
Okay. Well, she asked the question. Do you have? Was there a horse killed on a road outside of 165?
Yes, there was about 15 years ago, there was one hit on Tecolote, and there was one hit right near here due to fruit falling on the street. Since then, none, and there's been no human mortalities, and but there's been many human mortalities due to pedestrians, elk, deer, cattle, alcohol.
Thank you.
Yeah, since it's a cumbersome process to put signage on 165, which is
Right.
the state, is there any way that if private landowners along there agree to let a sign be on their property, could you do that?
It's not easy to do on
I'm
private
thinking
property.
I'm thinking of educational signs.
Yeah. No, you know, government can't do that. They can't ask to do that on private land, and that's a constitutional private property thing. I wouldn't want to try that. Yeah. She asked the question, is it possible that we could put up those signs on private property along those highways? And we can't do that.
You can use the right of way.
We can, on the right of way, we could. Whoever has jurisdiction on that road. Yes, sir.
Have most of the horses been hit on one certain area?
Yes. In one particular area, yes.
Multiple
There's a couple areas, but one right up here.
Yeah, it's like the village.
Yeah.
The village already has that 35, I know the Esther.
Yeah, I think that's it. 45.
There's like 5 different places where horses have been.
So it's up and down for sure. Yes, ma'am.
Is there any plan to enforce the law with people visiting the area to visit with wild horses up here? When there are people stopping at 165, throwing apples out the window so they can get a photo shoot. Will the sheriff's department be enforcing the law, handing out tickets to people?
They would be. It's up to an officer sees it, observes it, they'll enforce the law. They could enforce the law. No, there's no dispensation for tourists.
So you have to have signage obviously out there telling people that it's illegal.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Wearing me out. What else you got? Yes, ma'am. I'm here. I'm still here. I'm out of vodka. Does anybody have any extra? Okay, I can. Tequila. Yes, ma'am.
So, when you talk about future plans for the horses, and they're state horses, they're state wildlife, and Placitas is a quote wildlife corridor, and there's a big sign at the beginning, way down there by the freeway, that says wildlife corridor, and one of the pictures is horses. But I understand that civilization and development and progress wants to take over and just capitalize on all things. But what about our state parks? I mean, we do have state parks, so why can't the state parks be designated as wild horse sanctuary areas?
That's a big lift. You can ask your legislators about that.
We did.
That's state jurisdiction, but
We did.
Well, I mean, it's a big space, right? We've got big
We did.
spaces.
yeah, I don't think it's realistic.
Why?
Why?
Because I don't think the state will do that. Any place that you put a sanctuary.
But bears live there and cougars live there.
Sure.
So why can't?
We don't move bears and cougars over there unless they get captured.
Well, people moved in.
Here's the issue is, it's an ecology issue too. You've got the vegetation. When they graze, they pull roots up. They don't just graze.
Is that true? That is not true. Why do you keep saying that?
I'm not, okay, let me tell you this. If you look that line, if you Google me, you'll see I am not a horse expert.
Excellent.
Okay, so I'm not a qualified horse expert.
But you keep
Yes,
saying
sir.
things.
Question on permitting, it says permit will go to review and then go to the planning and zoning. Well, they pretty much follow the recommendations from the
Consultant.
expert.
Yes, sir.
And then it sounds like this permitting is to keep the horses away from the road for safety reasons. If there's certain distance from the road, or is there a certain number of permits are going to make? This, you know, they're always worried about the population of horses here. That's going to be a function.
Yeah,
How
we
many
know
feet is
how many horses there are.
So there's no limit on how many people.
Not, we'll take all of them. Right now, there's none.
Okay.
So,
There's no limit now.
but we're open to, yeah, there's about 170 plus or minus, más o menos, horses. So,
However, this is to get permits for,
it's not that hard to get.
I mean,
By the way, it's difficult, it's a 3 to 6 month process.
Yeah, yeah, once you start, well,
and it says that it's not good until after it's approved.
no, if you apply for your 501c3, the next day you come to us and show us that you've applied, demonstrate that you can perform, then we start. I'm trying to make this easy for you guys to understand. That's really what we're going to do. So, I have time for a few more questions. You're done, so I've given you,
I just have a statement.
No, I know, I figured that.
I'd like us to go back to safety.
Okay.
So, no one has proposed that we change the speed limit on Highway 165. Perhaps from the mile marker 7.
Great idea.
25 miles per hour and 35 miles.
We want that. We
Then
want
we
that.
create
It's a great idea.
a volunteer militia armed with speed guns
Love it.
and ticket rings.
Okay. It's a great idea. We're asking the state.
And I'm not, that's not tongue in cheek.
I don't know.
Completely different.
She talked about lowering the speed limit. We've asked the state. That it could be a real big fix for us. So that's something we're dealing with you.
The militia idea would free up the deputies to do their job.
Yeah.
And
Good
we
idea.
could police.
That's something we started. We're in the process of meeting and trying to resolve
I'm
that.
quite serious.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Yes.
Hi. My point is just a clarification of the liability, which I don't quite understand. So if we apply as a nonprofit and want to be a part of the solution, we're then accepting to take on liability for what? Anything that would happen to anyone with any wild horse anywhere?
Yes.
And the counties.
Well, I think it would be.
So for you,
Lawyer
you said
fees.
you don't want liability.
That's right.
So on the highways, what I'm understanding is the main concern of if horses are hit and killed, the horse dies and no humans have. So right now, you want to do the public safety thing so that you don't get sued or the county doesn't get sued
Correct.
if a human gets hurt. But with people feeding the wild horses, what's the concern for the liability that you're then putting on us if we were to
Those
like, I would just like an example, because I'm having a hard time understanding what liability would then be placed in my hands and why.
It would just be the risk of having your 501c3. You would be away from the road. We wouldn't look at anybody that could feed or water next to the highway, of course. That's our goal. And if a horse kicked you in the head,
Any human that interacts with any horse or anyone in my organization.
That's true.
I'm trying to clarify because I really don't understand how the
Well, if you had an
liability would
employee-
come on me.
If you had an employee that got hurt, or
A neighbor.
a neighbor.
So any human that interacts with a
Anybody
wild
can sue
horse
anybody
in the
anytime.
vicinity of a feeding area or anywhere, anytime.
Anytime.
Anywhere, anytime.
That's the risk. That's why this is a big dilemma for everybody, public and private.
You pay the
Yes,
county's,
ma'am.
you pay the county's attorney's fees. They get sued for giving you a permit.
Yeah.
You pay their legal.
That's why we had to check the gun at the door.
So I've lived here 24 years and I've enjoyed the horses and I've had in the last 4 or 5 years, I've certainly almost lost control of my car a couple of times. Not because like the commentary on next door, people driving fast, because the horses do definitely jump in front, right immediately on the road.
Yeah.
I have recently acquired Streptococcus equi. I have acquired Streptococcus equi, which is a version of the strangle bacteria in my body that either a mare or one of my domestic geldings in contact with one of the stallions in a herd has shared the bacteria. It's a highly contagious bacteria. UNM was baffled by it. They're going to publish this as a public health report. And it lives under water troughs. It lives under clothes when you're feeding horses. I've been quarantined now. I'm still in another 4 weeks of antibiotics, IV antibiotics. And then they will put my prosthetic back on. So whether you're carrying a prosthetic or you have a heart system, or I'm an athletic woman. I was a 30-year professional. I was healthy, and I did come in contact through my nose this horse bacteria that has affected my body.
That's a concern.
It's a huge concern.
So that's an example of a liability?
That would be an example of
She's talking about a risk of liability.
Or just feeding these horses, or putting them out and giving them a carrot, coming in contact with their saliva or their nasal passage. The strep equi hemolytic bacteria can live in the gut, in their uterus, we have in the gutturals, they can sneeze and blow on you.
I've witnessed it with horses, but never
So,
and it is transferable to your dogs and your cats. And
so she contracted a disease from a horse-borne illness disease, and now she's suffering the consequences of that. It happens. It happens.
But UNM has never stated anything like this.
We talked about that at one of our meetings, and it was, I was not considered an expert to talk about it, so I backed off. And you were right, I'm not.
Heavy conversations with all
Yes,
the
ma'am. That's great. It's a great point to bring in.
With all these things coming up though, would you consider?
Ramona.
Yes. One point of clarification that I would like
Yes.
to have. The horses have been classified as wildlife, is that correct? Because my question is, we're talking about human safety, we're talking about a wildlife corridor. How is it any different if a horse is classified as wildlife? How is it any different for county liability if someone hits an elk or hits a deer or hits some other type of wildlife? The liability would be the same.
It's the same.
That's
So are you trying to get rid of elk and deer and whatever else people may hit? Why are we picking on one particular species at this point?
Because that particular animal is being fed and crossing over the road and creating
So the
safety
elk
issues.
don't eat and they don't cross the road. I'm trying to
No, you're not.
understand.
Listen, you guys, I'm done playing the game here of gotcha. So here's what we're gonna do. Let me just explain what we're gonna do.
Yes.
These public meetings, we do them for your behalf, okay? I'll keep having these meetings. You can badger me, you can beat me up. I hope you'll do it to my staff, but if you do, I'll defend them, okay? And I'll just tell you this, you have to come up with some solutions with us. We're at the table, but if I'm gonna come to these meetings and you're just gonna make it a gotcha thing, and you guys are great at that, then stop having these meetings, okay? We'll just enforce the law and wish you the best. And we don't want to do that, okay? But, this isn't a competition. There is a law on the books now. It's going to be enforced September 1st. There's not going to be grandmas getting arrested, and we're not going to try to say we got you, unless you smart off to the judge. Then it's up to you and the judge, okay? But all we are doing is protecting the 6,000 or more people that live around here that aren't here today, okay? And so, I just want you to know, some of you, I'm being patient with you and I'm listening to you, and there are a few of you that I'm more than happy to meet with, and you know exactly who you are. And I don't care if you like me or hate me, or you flip me off and tell me to F off in the back room. I'll meet with you still, okay? But I'm just telling you that I'm done playing a game. We're done playing a game of gotcha, okay? I'm a smart guy, you're smart people. If we can sit down at a table and talk about how we can fix the problem, then great. But if we can't, then don't feed the horses unless you want to get a citation.
And Mr. Garcia, just one thing, I did put some suggestions forward when I spoke in public. Thank you.
I got them. And we listened to them. And all that stuff that you guys say Just because we don't act doesn't mean we don't hear you.
Is there any way that you would even consider postponing the September 1st date for us so
No.
that we can, why?
No. Why? We're here. Where do we go from here?
Yeah, where should we go from
Okay.
here? I could,
Okay, so people have asked you here today, many times, what are you calling these wildlife, whatever? Okay, so if you look at the White Sands horses, WOA hadn't worked with Senator Comodina to pass the law in 2007 that protects these horses, NMSA 77-18-5. At that time, there was no particular law, and but it was Attorney General Udall opined 9406 and said they're wildlife. And because they're wildlife and there's no protective legislation on them, then we go to common law, ratione soli, and says the landowner owns the animal. And so at that point it was federal, and they chose to say state. So, but the federal was the main landowner. So in fact, what they did was the feds determined to wipe them out and leave a bunch of non-native gazelle. Now, up here, and so then here comes WOA, and what we did was we worked with Attorney General Patricia Madrid. We didn't go bang our spoons or like swear, cuss, and we worked with Patricia Madrid. And we came up with this law, and we passed it with Senator Comodina from Corrales, and so there we go. Now, it's important for you to understand that there's a lot of misinformation here because, as admitted, the county is not experts. WOA kind of is, and the courts tend to agree with that. And so if you go to Sandia Man Cave, I have the reports from the 1941 from the Smithsonian Institute. What did they find in every layer of the Pleistocene? Was a Harvard PhD. Okay, it was a Harvard PhD and another PhD from UNM. And what they found was the horse, mastodons, they found sloths, blah, blah, blah. But all the way up to the top of the Pleistocene, you get to the Holocene and the more, temperate regions, and the horses were in every single layer. So when somebody says, I'm not an expert, but they're not indigenous, no, they are wildlife, they are indigenous, and so I just want to make that clear that to not include them, the DOT not including them, and I've been in conversation with the DOT. Nobody's been in conversation with me. I'm basically the legal expert. I've been the one following all these laws, making alternatives like the state park, making alternatives like an equine board without a conflict of interest. But nobody wants to hear.
Just a minute. With all due respect, how many times, may I ask you a question? I get to ask one question.
Sure.
How many times have you sued us?
I started to sue the county.
How many times? And just ballpark.
The state or the county?
The county. Exactly.
None.
None? How many times?
I dropped it.
How many times have you sued us?
How many times have
How
I?
many times have you filed a lawsuit?
One time, and I dropped it.
Well, I think it's more than that.
Well, is it? It isn't.
But the point is, you're trying to say you're an expert, but then you're suing us. It's not easy to be credible with us when you're suing us.
No,
So,
yes it is. What's that, retaliation? That's illegal.
that's just too political. We're not here for political issues. We're here for the horses. We're here as a citizen so I can know.
Bye, you're done.
So I can know
Thank you.
if I'm breaking the law or not.
Thank you. I'll go here. Yes, make point. I'm going to wrap up here in a second. So this is the final volley. Get your points in. Okay, who else? Yes, ma'am.
Is there an official recording of this meeting?
Yes, there is.
Okay, and how do we access it?
Ifra?
Pardon?
Ifra. Information request for public information. Yes, sir.
At the beginning, you said that the reason for the permits is to kind of cut down on the problems on the highway.
Right.
And there's nobody feeding horses now.
Right.
So if more people are feeding horses, how's it going to get better? And the other thing is,
How's it going to get better?
yeah, this is supposed to be a solution. Let people.
It's a solution for the safety issue of getting hit by a.
Yeah, but nobody's feeding them now.
Well, eventually, if you stop feeding them, horses will start going away. The band will start
You
moving.
said nobody's feeding.
That's true. So, but there's still culture to be here, going through grazing and roaming, as they say.
And one last other thing. Just kind of
Lie about, whoa.
the highway.
It's just lies.
I think it's a bigger safety problem. You have a lot of people on bikes going on these trails, and a lot of them come up and down the sideways. One day, somebody's killed on a bike, there's not a bike.
Yeah.
They've been looking at
I
bikes
can
and
answer
safety.
that, John.
Mhm.
I can answer that. The Las Vegas
Right.
Association is working with the sheriff's department, and we've got a, what do you call it, initial study to put in a bike trail. So that, it's gonna take some time, but it's in the works.
That's a good idea. Yes, ma'am.
I'm still confused that you're putting the cart before the horse. You put down this ordinance, and then you're shoveling us poop and saying it's sugar.
Okay.
I don't understand. You say, well, you want suggestions, you want this, you want that. It's an ordinance. Why can't we revisit this ordinance?
Yes.
Yeah.
You have the right, you have the public right to visit the ordinance, yeah,
Talk
you
to
do.
Commissioner Block and.
Yeah, you can do that.
Agreed, yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's how you do it. Other comments, questions? Did you remember?
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
go ahead.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, God.
No, you're like me. I did the same
no.
thing.
Okay.
I walk in the room and I'm like, why the hell did I?
Why did I come? Okay, so, but at one point back a ways,
Sure.
you said something about people need to bring ideas. And I think the people have brought a lot of ideas, and it seems like every time someone here in charge says that's not going to work, like for instance, more fencing or cattle guard or signage, and Sheriff Mills said, oh, he had requested signs. So I did an IPRA on signage requests, and there were none. There were no requests for signage. So you say we're doing a gotcha, but the thing is that we feel like maybe the county is doing the gotcha because you have the power to pass this law, and you've chosen to pass this law, but you can't provide factual information about why you're passing the law. You just imagine things and put them on paper, and then you pass a law. I ask for facts. We give you ideas.
You have an opinion, you expressed it.
And
I
you
listened.
turn them down.
I appreciate it. Yes, ma'am.
The question is, if the horses are wildlife, shouldn't they be managed by the Game and Fish Department?
That's a good question. Great question.
I can answer that.
Yes, livestock board, no, I don't need to answer that. The livestock board is really the one that has the jurisdiction to.
No, they don't. No, they don't.
The county was considering getting these new cattle guards that are horses.
No, we're looking at the cattle guard. You gotta get a cattle guard that has a smaller.
Right, yeah, they have to say, but I thought.
They're there, they're available. Yeah.
Okay, and the county is.
That's an option we're looking at, sure. But it's an expense, and there'll be people that don't like us spending money, which is valid, on those kinds of things. So listen, everybody, thank you for coming. I know these are, I appreciate what you guys are saying. It's a good discussion. I mean, I know it's uncomfortable for some of you, and I respect that. And but I'll just tell you, like I said before, if it's just going to be a situation where we can't help you, and we can't work together, then we're just going to enforce the rules and enforce the law. But our option, what we'd rather do is try to work with you, work with a group that wants to help manage this process with us, and we welcome that. And that's really where we're coming from. So on behalf of the county, thank you for coming. I don't know if we'll have another meeting, but if we do, we'll announce it, and maybe I won't bring everybody and drag the staff out here. I'll just take the bullets, and that's how we'll do it. So we're adjourned. Thank you very much. Thank you.
There's no liability for wildlife. They're trying to turn them into livestock. They're trying to call them free roaming. Read the law. It says they're wild. And they didn't pass the 301 because they called them free roaming. And it got tabled 6-2 at the Agricultural Committee because of all the legal issues I pointed out. I was there, and they'll never get that passed. And these horses are Spanish colonial. They can't remove them. They can't be adopted. They could move them to a sanctuary. I put in a bill.
So is this conversation a waste of all of our time every time?
Well, they lie, and then he lies and says I've sued him. I haven't. And then he lies about it.
Oh, I know. So I am ready to contact 2020, 60 Minutes, any of the major, because I think this story is pathetic and funny.
Contact the Guardian, contact the Intercept. Mainstream media won't carry it, but the Guardian and the Intercept.
Well, it depends on who you know, too.
True.
So, what I'm wondering is, I hate doing it just by myself. Is there anyone who...
But the trouble is that the media is against the horses across the nation at every level. That's why I
think it's more the process and the laughability of having an ordinance where they tell us that we have to have 501.
Imagine this. Last year, in July of 2022, our little group, our average age is probably 75 in my ward, right? We're a little group of old ladies. We don't get any salary. And we just won again in the appellate court. The list of people we beat, the Bundy attorneys, the attorney general, the governor, all these interveners. We won all these, right? Okay. That's big news, right? If anybody else did that, they'd be like, wow, David and Goliath story. Look at these old women, what they're doing, right? What did they do? It was not covered in any media.
But we say to them, it's a bunch of little old ladies, it's a David and Goliath story.
Well, tell the Guardian, tell them, because the Albuquerque Journal instead, KOAD, Albuquerque Journal, my throat's dry. What they did instead was an article about how the Placitas horses are starving, and they put a false picture of a horse that had a broken jaw and was a domestic horse up north of Santa Fe, roaming for 2 years, was emaciated, nothing but a bone. They said that was a Placitas horse, but we had the vet records, so they had to. So the media is against us. So when you're checking, I know that the Intercept and the Guardian are generally above the fray and did a horror story recently. So that's what I'm saying as a possibility. And oh, yay! I remember you from the legislature. I've been wanting to meet you. How are you? It's good to meet you. Very good. Good to see you. Yes. What you were saying about the BLM was very interesting. You did bring it up. And you said Placitas Wild, and we're saying some stuff about the BLM. The BLM's been here.
Oh, he did say that he supported the adoption programs.
Oh, right. And they're going to slaughter.
They're going to slaughter. We've had them from here go to slaughter.
That's right.
Dennis Chavez.